Welcome to the Candidates Forum for Pulaski County Judge, presented by the League of Women Voters of Pulaski County. I'm Carol Young. I'm your moderator for this event. I would like to start by welcoming our three candidates, Phil Wyrick, Glen Schwarz, Barry Hyde. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves and explain why he is running for the office of Pulaski County Judge. Then each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to a series of questions developed by the Pulaski County League of Women Voters. The same question will be asked of each candidate, and I will alternate the order of responses so that each candidate will have the opportunity to be the first to respond to a question. As time allows, I will also be asking questions submitted by our audience members. At the conclusion of the question and answer period, each candidate will have 1 minute to present their closing statements. The order for opening and closing statements was determined prior to the beginning of this forum. We will now start with our 2-minute introductions, and our first candidate to speak will be Glen Schwarz.
Well, my name is Glen Schwarz. I am the Libertarian candidate for Pulaski County Judge. It might be more appropriate to call me, though, the legalization candidate for Pulaski County Judge. But before I get into that, I want to tell you I believe I am qualified to have this office. I have a degree from Florida State University. I have a teacher certificate from UALR. I've taught for 5 years. And I've run about 3 different companies. I was assistant manager at the Little Rock Free Press, and now I own my own newspaper. I can balance a checkbook, and important for this job because it's not a judge position anymore. It's actually just basically you're electing the chairman of the quorum court. And I do know parliamentary procedure, and I would be qualified to assume that seat up there. But there is a real key difference between my campaign, and that is that I am the candidate to vote for if you want to see the war on drugs in Pulaski County come to a screeching halt. I will use all of the power, all the influence of my office to make sure that not a single another Pulaski County citizen gets sent to prison for a marijuana crime from Pulaski County. So these gentlemen will probably give you some formula for the jail or how to keep the jail open for the 1,000 beds. My formula is to shut the front door and stop making so many of our citizens into criminals in the first place. We must concentrate on violent crime because at the rate we're going, Arkansas will be the 49th state to make any kind of reform in this area, even while we approach #1 in the violent crime category. I have a new outlook on this, and I would hope that the voters of Pulaski County can help me to drag Arkansas kicking and screaming into the 21st century by instituting reform starting right here in Pulaski County.
Thank you, Mr. Schwarz. Our second candidate will be Phil Wyrick. Please tell us about yourself and why you are running for Pulaski County Judge.
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be here. And in fact, it's inspiring to see this many people come out in a democratic process. We just don't see it that much anymore, and I assure you need to know that it inspires the candidates, and I hope it informs you. My name is Phil Wyrick. I'm running for Pulaski County Judge. And that position, so many times as we run for a position or we try to dissect a candidate, we see that we vote for them because maybe we like the way they look or we like the way they smile or something about them. But I challenge you to look at the credentials and to determine that indeed a candidate is qualified. My qualifications are this. I have started a small business in my career as family business 42 years. I've also served in the legislature, 3 terms in the Arkansas House, 1 term in the Arkansas Senate. I have served as a director of an Arkansas State Livestock and Poultry Commission. I have been on the Pulaski County Election Commission. So I like to think that I've got the experience. It's important to be able to identify the priorities. Public safety is going to be the #1 priority in my race. It is, we have a situation today where the jail has been shut down 3 times this year. It is shut down as we speak. It's extremely important that we have public safety, and somebody, no matter where you go in the world, the #1 issue is I want my family kept safe and I want myself safe. So please, when you're looking at us as candidates, consider these issues. Thank you.
Okay, now for our third candidate, Barry Hyde.
First of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for organizing this event and just compliment you on what a great service I think this is for all the voters in the county. My name is Barry Hyde, and I'm the Democratic nominee for Pulaski County Judge. My wife Jean and I have 3 children, 5 grandchildren. Number 6 should be here in the next 2 or 3 weeks. They all live within about 10 blocks of us. Actually 27 years ago last month, I started a small business in the corner of the living room of my rented house at the time. It's a used office desk from Daily Office Furniture and a 2-line push-button phone. Today it's been very successful. It's now run by 4 key employees, one of which is my son. While I was building that business and raising a family, I was also very active in the community, and from Boys and Girls Clubs to community councils to chambers of commerce and many others. And I've received a few awards along the way as well. But I was not any more proud than any award than the one that meant so much, because I was an active duty soldier in the Air Force stationed in Little Rock Air Base, and I received the ESGR Employer Support for Guard and Reserve Award. My family has done very well here. My business has been very successful. So it's easy to see why I'm motivated to serve the county. And I'm excited to have another opportunity at public service. I've spent 6 years also in the legislature. Very proud, very active. Most proud of 2 pieces of legislation, the first of which was in '09. It was the piece of legislation that was central to reopening the county jail to full capacity. The other legislation I'm most proud of are the differing pieces that were passed and run that provided new jobs in the state as well as Pulaski County. I was always taught that we should leave what we received better off than what it was when we arrived. And that's my goal in Pulaski County. I'm here today to tell you that it's my intention, with your support, to be the next Pulaski County Judge. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to our first question. And our first respondent will be Phil Wyrick. Would you support an ongoing citizen advisory monitoring group to oversee the planning and zoning in the Maumelle watershed?
I'm very interested in the Maumelle watershed. I understand that it's not only a quality of life issue, but it's an economic development tool. When I ran for county judge 6 years ago, there was not a lot of interest in the watershed, and actually, in my opinion, the developers had the upper hand. Through the attention that we brought to that issue, a 25-member task force was formed, and that task force has gone before the quorum court and got a unanimous vote on what they felt like was the most important issues in the watershed. Now, is it a work done and all finished? No. In fact, Ruth Bell said it's continuously going to be something to see if it needs to be twerked and turned and looked at. I support the compromise. I support an ongoing monitoring.
Okay, our next answer will be Mr. Hyde. Do I need to repeat the question for you?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Would you support an ongoing advisory monitoring group to oversee planning and zoning in the Maumelle watershed?
Actually, we'll soon be releasing my platform for this position, and one of the bullets in that platform is to establish a committee to study and report to the quorum court annually their recommendations for any changes needed in our watershed zoning ordinance. The committee would be comprised of 2 quorum court members and the other 6 members representing people who live or work in the watershed conservationists, and experts in public water systems technology. Thank you.
And Mr. Schwartz, would you support an ongoing citizen advisory monitoring group to oversee planning and zoning in the Maumelle watershed?
Yes, I would. You know, Arkansas is blessed with like 4 feet of rainfall a year, and this drinking water that we drink is rainwater, and it is just the best in the world. And we should take every measure to make sure that that stays clean and that we utilize this as the great resource that we are blessed with.
Thank you. Our next question, Mr. Hyde will be the first person to respond. There has been some controversy over the new contract funding the county jail. What do you suggest would be an equitable way to finance county jail operations?
I think that the fairness or equitable funding source is probably either what we're already doing, because that's the agreement and how we've been paying all along. I'll point out to you that there's a lot of inequity in what we're doing. When the agreement started back in '94, the split of funding to fund the jail was approximately 50-50. The cities were 50% and the county was 50%. According to the records I've checked today, the county is now paying 77%, and the cities, actually a combination of the cities, state rebates or state money that they give us, our $28 a day on state prisoners, and the federal money we get for holding federal prisoners, all totals only 23%. So the most unfair burden is really upon the county. But we have a 5-year agreement, contract that's been put in place, and a deal is a deal. So in 5 years is when we'll take it back up, and I think that all options should be open at that time.
Thank you. Mr. Schwartz, there has been some controversy over the new contract funding the county jail. What do you suggest would be an equitable way to finance county jail operations?
I am unfamiliar with the funding of the county jail. This is like one of the details that would have to be learned as a new public office holder. However, my basic reason for running for public office is to reduce the number of people that we call criminals. I call it closing the front door of the county jail. I'm going to reduce the whole number of people that are called criminals in our society and focus our attention on violent and real criminals to where they can be serving a lot more of their sentences. I don't think it's a deterrent to get convicted of a crime and end up serving 1/3 of your sentence, as is the average today. That's going to be my answer.
Okay. And Mr. Wyrick, what do you suggest would be an equitable way to finance county jail operations?
Well, I think you also mentioned the controversy. There has been some controversy. And I think 2 of the cities, Little Rock being the largest, and then Jacksonville, has not signed that agreement. Actually, what the agreement is 5% increase for the first year and not over 3% on the consumer price index on the following 4 years. There has been some criticism on the 2 cities that have not signed. Well, frankly, I think that's being unfair to the 2 cities for this reason. You've got, for instance, Little Rock that pays $2.2 million. They are by far the largest payer toward the county jail. However, here we have a jail that's shut down. That jail being shut down, it certainly gives them cause for pause. It is simply what we should do is make sure that there is a jail open. I have plans to do that. I have financial means to move in that direction to get that jail open.
Thank you. Mr. Schwartz, what is your philosophy for making appointments to county boards and commissions?
Well, that would be, have an interview and a process and hire the most qualified person. And that's a short answer.
Mr. Wyrick, what is your philosophy for making appointments to county boards and commissions?
That is one of the charges that you have as chief executive officer, is identifying people that are not only capable, but are willing to work. And that is one of the things that I will seek out in those people. My wife, who I did not mention in my opening statement, I caught daggers a little while ago, but we've been married 43 years. She's been on the Little Rock City Council for more than 20 years. She has been through that process, and I have shared some of those conversations. It's extremely important to identify people that want to do it, identify people that have the talent and certainly are qualified. It is one of the pleasures of involving people, citizens, into getting involved. I see several candidates for the city board, city Little Rock school district out there. And it takes quite an effort to step into that arena and give of yourself. So I do not take that lightly. I take counsel from it. I certainly, again, with all the reasons that I mentioned, is the path I would follow.
Thank you. And Mr. Hyde, what is your philosophy for making appointments to county boards and commissions?
I think the process for filling open board seats certainly varies from what the board is and what the responsibilities of that board are. In fact, there are some that are simply ceremonial and don't carry some relevance. But many of them really are very hard-working positions, and there's little or no compensation or even covering of expense for serving on these positions. So the first thing is I would urge the quorum court to take action that would open up an application process, and all this should be transparent all the way through, and allow them to give input in selecting who they believe will be the best folks to fill those seats on those commissions or committees.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Wyrick, what are your budget priorities if you're elected?
My budget priorities is, as I mentioned earlier, is public safety. There are so many things. You've got to have a county judge that can chew gum and walk and spin some plates at the same time. But you have to be able to identify your public safety issues. Number one. Certainly there's other issues. We can't continue to build jails at the rate that crime is growing. With that in mind, I have to have be mindful of the fact that we have to have a situation that keeps kids out of jail. You know, when you have a minority youth group that is 40% unemployed, that certainly leads them to crime and leads them to an opportunity to go the wrong way. So that being the case, I have to be mindful of these others. I have to look at priorities, and public safety, getting that jail open, is my #1 priority.
Thank you. Mr. Hyde, what are your budget priorities?
It'll be my plan to work within a conservative and a balanced budget while maintaining our reserves. #1 will be most important. #2 is maintaining the quality of the essential services that we must supply to citizens of Pulaski County. And it would be my intention to work with the quorum court to try and provide regular pay increases within the budget constraints for the county for the employees in order to attract and retain good employees. The very first element is without a good workforce, we can't accomplish any of our goals, and that includes the employees who are out at the county jail. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schwartz, what are your budget priorities?
Well, the county maintains roads and bridges. That would be a high priority. I am also an advocate of public safety and as I've said, by focusing our attention on violent and real crime, I think we'll make a lot more progress in public safety. A couple areas there my opponents have not mentioned. I'm an advocate I'm an environmentalist, and I advocate the opportunity for everybody in the county to have access to recycling services. Right now, most of the people that have access to that live in houses because they have this curbside recycling, and we're shutting down all of the collection areas. We used to have like collection trailers and collection areas. These are all being shut down. I'd like to make sure that every single person in Pulaski County has an opportunity for clean and efficient recycling, whether they live in a house or an apartment or a house trailer, or if they live on a farm, they will have the opportunity to recycle there. And also I'd like to look into a series of Civil War parks, sort of like Jacksonville's Reed's Bridge Battlefield Park, as an incentive for tourism and such.
Thank you. Mr. Hyde, what steps would you take to improve communications between the county and its citizens?
Well, again, if going back to a platform that I'll be releasing shortly, one of the bullet points under business and technology is to present a plan to the quorum court to begin live streaming committee and quorum court meetings to elevate the level of transparency for county business. Everybody's on the internet today, and there's no reason why folks shouldn't be able to see what business is being handled, how it's being handled, and by who it's being handled on the committee level, as well as when it gets to the quorum court level. In addition to that, it'll be my intention to have a hotline number, if you will, to the county judge's office that certainly won't be able to always be answered by the county judge, but a place where people can try and get their problems, if they're serious problems or serious issues, to where the buck stops, so to speak. Thank you.
Mr. Schwartz, what steps would you take to improve communications between the county and its citizens?
Communications is actually my field. I have had a public access show. I was the last public access user in Little Rock until Comcast finally dropped that service. So I would look into reestablishing that and putting the quorum court meetings on some kind of public access like the city of Little Rock does. I also publish a newspaper, so public publications of of what the county is up to. And I am lagging a little behind on the internet cloud, so I'm sure that that's also a means by which a lot of the citizens can keep up what's going on in the county. But newspapers and Comcast public access and the internet would all be available for citizens to keep up with what's going on with the quorum court and the county government.
Thank you. And Mr. Wyrick, what steps would you take to improve communications between the county and its citizens?
Technology is changing at a rapid pace, and I recognize that. It is actually a savings to the county as we move to in that direction, that all advances be done and actually save money for the county. But there's still the down-home way that we handle politics and local government, and that's what county is in Arkansas and Pulaski County. I want to have my cell number available. I mentioned my wife's on the city board. When I was in the Senate and the State House, I published my cell number, my home number, and available at all time. Somebody says, oh, that's way too much. Well, let me tell you something. If you don't want to talk to people, if you don't want to deal with their problems, don't get in this business. So it's not only the technical approach, but it's the person approach. And that's been my style, and it will continue to be my style. And I'll set a pace in the county courthouse that you can find the county judge if you've got a problem. I guarantee you.
Thank you. Mr. Schwartz, what are your priorities for the road and bridge tax monies?
Well, I'll tell you right off the bat, I do not like the idea of closing the Broadway Bridge for 3 years. But that contract might have already been let, and might be too late to make any changes to that. I think that bridge should have been repaired and reopened just as soon as possible. I like the idea I read in the Arkansas Times was that they suggested instead of that was to build a bridge over here at Chester Avenue that would connect Chester Avenue with Pike Avenue. That made a lot more sense to me. So other than that, the county does maintain roads and bridges, and I will have them do that to the best of our ability.
Mr. Wyrick, what are your priorities for the road and bridge tax monies?
I think that's a good question here. It's been an issue of debate. Some of the assets that we've built in the past are extremely beautiful and attractive, and they are assets, just that. But it's determining what our priorities are again. For instance, let's take an asset such as the Big Dam Bridge. Some 8 years ago, we spent out of Road and Bridge $800,000 to put lights on the bridge. And it's been beautiful. A lot of tourism likes it. But when you do that, you've got to be aware that that also takes maintenance. Here next tomorrow, the bids close on replacing the light bulbs on the Big Dam Bridge. It is estimated that it'll be between $400,000 and $500,000. So when this issue comes up and you become a supporter of a particular asset, remember that it doesn't stop there. And we've got to take care of our assets, but do not continue to bring on issues that drag down that budgetary process and robs from the road and bridge.
And Mr. Hyde, what are your priorities for the road and bridge tax monies?
Many people might need to be reminded that road and bridge money is separate from general revenue and cannot be spent anywhere except on road and bridge projects. So it would be my intention to continue to focus on county roads and bridges to keep them well maintained and in safe condition. And that'll be the priority, is to make sure that everything that we've got travel occurring on is very safe and reliable. And I would also want to increase the efforts to maintain roadside vegetation, litter, and the drainage projects along county roads, which you don't have to drive very far to see that oftentimes the grass is literally waist high, but it's been so poorly maintained in some areas that the tree line is encroaching to the side of the roadway now. And then lastly, I would add bike lanes in high traffic areas, when able to, in areas that are used by bicyclists, and they're high traffic areas. It's a safety element. We've seen several people killed in the last year or two, and it's something that needs to be addressed in our ongoing plan. Thank you.
Mr. Wyrick, do you support leasing unfunded county jail space to the state, and is that viable long term?
I do not think this is a good idea. We recently leased, for instance, the Work Release Center for $1 for 1 year. I'm trying to figure out the rationale on that. We are now keeping prisoners in the county jail, state prisoners, $45 cost to us, $28 reimbursement. We can't continue to be an annex to the state prison system. We have approximately 20% of all of the state prisoners that are backed up in the state of Arkansas. And we're just one of 75 counties. Something's wrong with this. These are some of the issues that we have to address in the legislature. With my experience and my comfort in being in the legislature on both sides, I will go to the legislature and make sure that that reimbursement is moved up, to make sure that there is some relief taken away from us as a county jail as far as keeping prisoners. It's totally out of proportion.
Thank you. Mr. Hyde, do you support leasing unfunded county jail space to the state, and is that viable long term?
It is not viable long term, and actually part of my plan in this platform is to reconsider the contract when it comes due, which is I think next June or July of 2015, and take a different stance in how we operate that minimum security area and how we split our folks that are serving misdemeanor sentences and are arrested and being held in jail on nonviolent crimes. I think that we have some things that we can do that will not only not require more of our already unbelievably tight general fund budget, but will also open up some bed space that will allow us to begin to explore some alternative sentencing plans and some alternative monitoring plans. Thanks.
Thank you.
I have no objection to leasing unused prison space to the state. If my plan for outright legalizations and concentrating on violent crime works, there should be some additional space in the jails. And it does make sense to me that we would bear more of a burden since we are the most centrally located city, that you know, as prisoners go from here to there, they almost have to pass through Little Rock. So I have no objection to leasing our space if we have unused space to the state, as long as we get a decent price at it. That $1 deal didn't sound very good.
Thank you. Mr. Hyde, if elected, how would you change the way our county is run?
Well, I don't think I would change the way the county is run, because the way the county is run is described in the Constitution. The county is run with the administrator, or as it's actually defined, the CEO of the county as the county judge. But what the county judge does is executes the budget and the plans that are approved and considered by the quorum court. That's kind of the long and the short of it, in terms of how it is run. And so I would have to say that what folks sometimes don't realize when talking about the county judge is there has to be a respect extended to the other elected offices. The treasurer doesn't work for the county judge. The sheriff doesn't work for the county judge. The county prosecuting attorney doesn't work for the county judge. And the quorum court certainly doesn't work for the county judge. There's a few here tonight that would probably attest to that. But more often than not, hopefully we'll be working together, because that's really what I think we need a little bit more of, is an opportunity to be constructive instead of destructive. Thank you.
Mr. Schwarz, if elected, how would you change the way the county is run?
Oh, yeah. Well, here's the whole deal. I intend to end the war on drugs in Pulaski County by whatever means necessary, given the power and the authority of the Pulaski County judge. So I wrote down 3 things here. More than likely, I would zero budget the drug task force. I would like to open a medical marijuana clinic in Pulaski County, the first in the state, federal and state law notwithstanding. And I would look to open a cannabis hemp test plot. You know, cannabis hemp is the oldest and most versatile plant known to man. And it is just a travesty for the past 80 years, because our grandfathers read some garbage, some yellow journalism that convinced them that some pot smokers are going to, take this world into the insanity or something, that we took away from our farmers the most valuable plant, one of the most versatile and valuable plants that they could have. Even right now, the federal government has licensed 6 states to do hemp test plots. And once again, Arkansas is lagging way behind. And if I'm in Pulaski County judge, I will try to make one of those hemp test plots right here.
Thank you. And Mr. Wyrick, if elected, how would you change the way the county is run?
Well, first of all, I do not support the legalization of marijuana. However, the county government has a structure already in place, and it's a legislative body, and it works very well. I think the key issue is being able to work with that legislative body, convince them that this is what the people are most interested in. And this is what I have found that the county leadership has not done in the past. They've not identified the priorities of the people, and I think that needs to be conveyed. I mentioned public safety. There is something tremendously wrong when we have a little lady, African-American lady, elderly, in Dunbar community, that has to drive 5 blocks out of the way just to go to church because she has fear of safety in her own community. You've got to give people safety in their community. You've got to concentrate on the jails, and that continues to go back to my ability to communicate and get good programs through.
Thank you. That concludes the questions that were submitted by the Pulaski County League of Women Voters. Now I'll ask the questions that have been submitted by our audience members, and I also just want to thank everyone that we have a full house of audience members tonight, and I'm very pleased about that. Okay, the first question will be for Mr. Wyrick.
Just any paper.
Do you plan to continue supporting the wellness initiatives such as the Big Dam Bridge in Pulaski County?
As I mentioned earlier, that I support the assets that we've already have invested in. I think they've given certainly a destination for tourists. I keep re-emphasizing that we are going to have to be extremely sensitive with this period that we're in on public safety, is that we set our priorities and making sure that we take care of the priority of public safety before we look at other new projects. We have to maintain these issues. I don't have an issue with maintaining the, restocking the lights on the Big Dam Bridge. But it's not going to be a new issue.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hyde, do you plan to continue supporting wellness initiatives such as the Big Dam Bridge?
Yes, I do. I think the county has the opportunity to provide a role, of course, with the support and the desire of the Quorum Court to participate in a healthier, population and children in our community. As I said before, I think we have an obligation to leave something better than what we found, and I think that goes a long ways to changing what's happened in our population over the last 60 years.
Thank you. And Mr. Schwarz, do you plan to continue supporting the wellness initiatives such as the Big Dam Bridge in Pulaski County?
Yes, I like the Big Dam Bridge. I like the river trail that goes all the way down the river and back again. I've seen that attract hundreds and hundreds or thousands of bicycle tourists. So that's really a great idea. I really like rowing. I think that one thing we haven't developed is the rowing exercises. It's a neophyte club down there on the river. I think they've got a regatta coming up soon. But I would like to make more emphasis on rowing, which I think is the best, absolutely the best whole body exercise that you can possibly have. That and perhaps more emphasis on parks and fitness would be a good idea.
Thank you. Mr. Schwarz, the next question, you're up again. County employees have not received a raise in several years. Would you support a raise for county employees? Why or why not?
Well, certainly if the money is there, the county employees should have a raise. I admire people that have worked at the same job for all these years. I've been self-employed for 20 years, so my income is directly related to how hard I go out and work that particular project I'm on. But there's certainly something to be said for people that spend 15 and 20 years in public service. So the money should be found. If it has to be drained from the war on drugs to give these people a raise, I would support that.
Mr. Wyrick, county employees have not received a raise in several years. Would you support a raise for county employees, and why or why not?
County employees have not received a raise in over 5 years. It's not only because it's the right thing to do, but to give somebody an opportunity, and it's to make more money, to have an opportunity for advancement, and just to have a good attitude, a better attitude in your workplace. Absolutely. It's disturbing that we cannot keep the policemen and the guards in our county jail simply because it is so deficient compared to say, Little Rock. A rookie starts $10,000 higher than a 10-year veteran that works for the Pulaski County Jail. I have made a commitment that I will definitely be one of my priorities is to get that salaries up for county employees. Yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Hyde, would you support a raise for county employees?
Well, as I've already stated, I would support an annual review with the intent of making sure that there's a raise. We have not been able to give a raise to county employees in I think at least the last 4 years, 3 of the last 4 years that I'm aware of. And what we've been doing instead is been giving some kind of a bonus to employees. And I would really oppose that. On a one-time basis, that may have worked, but ongoing, that hurts the younger employees much more than the older employees. And without those young employees entering your workforce and staying there because they have opportunity to be advanced and to be able to depend on a little bit of a raise each year, there's just no way to have a great organization. There's no way to provide those critical essential services if you have a weak, unstable, high turnover workforce. So the raise may be 25% this year because things are so tight, or they may be 2% next year. It needs to be within our means, but there needs to be a steady plan to improve those wages, and especially in the jail as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will start with Mr. Hyde. What is your position on recycling opportunities for those of us who live in unincorporated areas of Pulaski County?
Well, I hope that that the Quorum Court, as they complete their budget review this year, and they have the opportunity to review the problems that caused them to make the decision to close that recycling program, that it will be quick to be reopened. Hopefully new and improved with the benefit of the experience that's been gained, and hopefully with the small increases that we're seeing in the county revenues, we'll be able to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Wyrick, what is your position on recycling opportunities for those who live in the unincorporated areas of Pulaski County?
Well, I think it's awfully important to do it. I think it's a good citizen that does that and recycles. I grew up in an era where you threw everything out the windows, you was going down the interstate, you know. That doesn't work anymore. We have to have incentives to do it, to clean it up. I would also say that I have other priorities, and it's public safety, as I continue to hammer. So it would be in the availability of funds, but I support it in theory.
Thank you. And Mr. Schwarz, what is your position on recycling opportunities in the unincorporated areas of Pulaski County?
Well, I actually ran a recycle program for 3 years. I had 6 Kroger stores. I actually contracted for 10, but it turned out that 6 was the maximum number I could handle, because one day I showed up at a recycle bin I had built for Kroger, and that thing, well, when first time I pulled up to it, the Kroger in West Little Rock, you couldn't even see the bin. It was just totally covered with recyclable plastics. It took me like 10 or 12 hours to clean that up. And that's what I learned at this thing, is that this curbside program that we have, that's feel-good recycling, great for the suburban houses, lets them have the opportunity, but it really gives Waste Management the opportunity to tax each and every house in Little Rock $5 a head so that they can collect that money. That is the focus of that program. I'm a big believer in point recycling, where you bring your stuff to one place. Back in the 90s, it was a Kroger store. You get one place where you can recycle glass and plastic and newspaper and such, and have the people bring their stuff to that one spot. That is the efficient way to recycle, and that will not cost the taxpayers a nickel.
Mr. Wyrick, do you believe in spending a large sum of money to decorate a bridge is more important than using the money to prevent flooding in areas of Pulaski County?
We're talking about the Broadway Bridge, which is an issue that's already pretty much been decided. But when you talk about funding on areas like out in Higdon, there was a project that was funded to build a new community center. That's another one of those projects that we build an asset and then we have to take care of it. It is important for the area to have that. I understand. I understand that area wanted it for their youth. I understand all of that. But would it have been wiser to remodel a building and then also look at some other areas such as flooding, where roads are washing out in that area? And in fact, it makes it completely impassable at certain times where you can't even get school buses through there. Those being the issues, it's another issue of priority. Let me take care of those children. Let me make sure that their health is good. Let me make sure we don't have mosquito-filled ditches, and then we will move on to the frills. But let's take care of the priorities. Don't buy your daughter dancing shoes if she's hungry. It's priorities.
Thank you. Mr. Hyde, do you believe in spending a large sum of money to decorate a bridge? Do you believe that is more important than using the money to prevent flooding in areas of Pulaski County?
Yeah, I've already stated that that it would be one of my priorities in Road and Bridge to not only improve the vegetation and maintain safety of our roads and bridges, but also focus on those drainage issues. Pretty much across the entire eastern, I guess maybe 1/4 of Pulaski County, we seem to have ongoing long-term drainage issues, and I doubt that it's easily resolved, but I'm relatively certain that just with a good and a regular maintenance program of the ditch lines of the roads, at least the major roads that carry the most water, we can make improvements on that.
Thank you. And Mr. Schwarz, do you believe in spending a large sum of money to decorate a bridge? Do you believe that is more important than using the money to prevent flooding in areas of Pulaski County?
No. No, I do not believe decorating a bridge is more important than drainage. But on the other hand, the safety of bridges may well be. And that would be my primary concern, is that the bridges are safe, that the roads are safe. And you know, what you're talking about here is decision-making processes for the multi-million-dollar Pulaski County budget and where to spend that money. That's decided by this quorum court. The question arose in my mind why out of 15 quorum court members, none of them have stepped up to stand for this office. But I would be, you can trust me to be an executive who will run the quorum court fairly and with parliamentary procedure and let them decide where their priorities may lie, whether it be with the safety of bridges or with drainage. Decorating a bridge, no.
Thank you. And Mr. Schwarz, would you consider privatizing the jail? Why or why not?
Well, I would consider just about anything. No, I think we should keep that in a public domain kind of deal. As I said, I've already stated my stand that I think that we've criminalized too many people in our society, that there's been an 80-year injustice, and that the way to solve our problems is to reduce the number of people that were eligible to be sent to jails and prisons, and that to reserve that space for violent criminals. I don't really like the idea of privatizing it. They shouldn't be in it for profit. I've heard some bad reports around the country that private jails, it'd actually be their incentive to keep you there. And on behalf of the people that have gone through the justice system, I would say that I'm opposed to private jails. We can keep that particular function in the public domain.
Thank you. Mr. Wyrick, would you consider privatizing the jail?
Absolutely not. That is part of the responsibility of the county. I have pretty well laid out my commitment to public safety. I've laid out my commitment to open that 160 beds that have been built and are not staffed with employees. This is what we are charged to do by the people. I take that charge and that responsibility very serious, and I pledge that I will open up that 160 beds in my 2-year term.
Thank you. Mr. Hyde, would you consider privatizing the jail?
I think one of the things we need to do at the jail is to get outside the box and consider new approaches. And the use of a private contractor is one that certainly deserves review and consideration. May or may not be an option for us, but to arbitrarily fail to consider that option, I think would be failing at the job. And privatization really is unrelated to the fact of our jail being closed. Our jail closure can't be solved today by adding more beds. I just want to make that point because a lot of people are stuck on we need to build more beds. If you will go back and look at the history of our jail, back in '09, we were just trying to get back up to 1,000 beds. We're now at 1,210 and pushing 1,300. The jail is closed. Nearly half of the people in that jail are state inmates. They're state prisoners. And if you build another 600 beds, I'd be willing to bet a year's salary that it'll be less than 60 days before they have them filled with state prisoners. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wyrick, we're starting our last question. What would you do with excess funds?
Well, I don't know if I've mentioned public safety tonight. Our jail space. Absolutely. It's still public safety. It is a priority. I have to take care of the jail space. I am charged with that. Is it going to be a flamboyant job of cutting ribbons to some pretty project? No. It's opening up the jail. It's given the different municipalities the opportunity, the service they deserve, the citizens the service they deserve, and that is public safety. I am still committed on public safety. I am committed on more jail space, and it could be, Mr. Hyde, that maybe we just ought to throw our hands in the air and give up. That's not what you hire us to do. You hire us to figure out the problems. You hire us to make sure that we run this government efficiently, and I pledge to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Hyde, what will you do with excess funds?
I would use excess funds to try and solve the ills that we have, to try and help the problems that we have in the county. One of which is the salaries in the jail. Again, I'm going to reiterate that if you'll study the facts, Mr. Wyrick, you'll find that the state population filling nearly half of our jail is a no-win solution. They have taken nearly every open county jail bed statewide. So until the state solves their problem, we're going to be stuck in a limited number of beds. So the best approach to open beds up to the incarceration of folks is going to be an innovative approach to how we better manage the facility we have. And that we'll start on that by using those excess funds to improve the salaries that the people who worked in the county, especially those folks who are jailers and deputies, to improve the quality of our workforce, and thereby will improve their performance.
And Mr. Schwarz, how would you, or what would you do with excess funds?
Well, a few questions ago, you said that the employees haven't had a raise in 5 years. So obviously, excess funds would be to provide a raise and bring the county employees up to the snuff of the city employees. But being a libertarian, I will also remind you that if there are excess funds over a longer period, of course, the taxpayers deserve relief also. That, you know, the property and county taxes can actually threaten people with losing their homes. They're, you know, such a amount of money. So don't forget the taxpayers. That as a libertarian, I'm committed to keeping the taxes as low as possible and limiting the domains that government has stuck its hands and stuff into. So employee raises first, and remember the taxpayers second would be my answer to excess funds.
Thank you. Now that we've heard all three candidates answer some very important questions, we will hear their 1-minute closing statements, and we begin with Mr. Schwarz.
Right. As I said, I believe I am qualified to be the Pulaski County Judge, to sit in that position and chair the meetings of the Quorum Court. And I believe I will be bringing some new viewpoints to county government. The government has gotten too big at all levels, that this war on drugs, this 80-year injustice that we've been suffering through, can only exist if it's some kind of conspiracy or collusion between all four forms of government: national, state, county, and city. And for the voters of Pulaski County to kick out one leg of that will send a message to Arkansas that we are done. Pulaski County is going to lead Arkansas out of the war on drugs and to a new era of freedom and prosperity, and a new attitude that we are responsible for our own selves, and we need as much freedom and as much access to our own monies as we can possibly have.
Mr. Wyrick.
I think it's important that you elect a county judge with leadership ability. And leadership ability is bringing groups together. It's bringing the leadership of Jacksonville together, the leadership of Little Rock together, Maumelle, and all of them, to solve problems together. I have demonstrated that I have that ability when I worked in a bipartisan way on the Election Commission. I have done it in a legislative initiative when I served in the legislature. When I served as the director of a state agency, I hope I demonstrated the skills of being able to communicate and be on the other side of the table. It's extremely important that we have somebody that has confidence, has experience, and certainly the confidence of the people. I'll be a good county judge. I'm not moving up to run to governor. I'm not one to be king, but I have a commitment to this county. It's been good to me. It's been good to my kids, and I'll give you everything that I can if you will give me your attention and maybe your vote.
And Mr. Hyde.
Finally, it's my intent to lead the cities in the county into a formal agreement of collaboration and cooperation that would allow each community to expect the support of the entire group when pursuing the goals of their community, and a forum where local leaders in the community can work on solutions to challenges facing the county. I would offer you as an example that we try to do the best we can to mirror the Northwest Arkansas Council Agreement, which I think for nearly the last 12 years has produced an awful lot of benefit and bounty for that area. It's high time that Pulaski County and city leaders learn how to do a better job of working together. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to thank our candidates, our audience members, Judge Valines and his staff, Comcast Cable, and the League of Women Voters of Pulaski County for making this forum possible. Mark your calendars. Early voting begins October the 20th, and Election Day is Tuesday, November the 4th. Take your photo ID with you to the polls, and please vote. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.